Don't miss the last blood moon on Earth until December 31st, 2028, which is nearly 3 years away. And if you're in the Western Hemisphere, you're gonna have an even longer wait. From the evening of March 2nd to the morning of March 3rd, the moon will transform into a deep crimson during the total lunar eclipse. And if you're in the right part of the world, you're in for a big show, weather permitting. Isn't this hobby kind of exhausting? We have to start or end almost every sentence with weather permitting or if it's clear. It's clear tonight. There's the moon and Jupiter, but no eclipse. And in this video, I'll show you how to see the lunar eclipse and how you can take photos of the lunar eclipse, weather permitting. People from Eastern Asia and Oceania, all the way to the western parts of North America, will get the best view of the whole event. The further you move from that region, the less you'll see, but even for someone like me all the way out in Boston, I'll still be seeing totality, although it'll only be for about 14 minutes before the moon sets and the sun rises, but you can bet that I'll be out there trying to take a photo of the lunar eclipse if it's clear. I've linked to the timeanddate.com's interactive map in the description below, so you can go in and find out for yourself when it's happening for you, where you can look, and before you head out, check the weather. Now let's talk about taking photos of the eclipse. The easiest way, of course, is to use the camera that you have, which is your phone. You can use the phone as is. I took this terrible shot of last year's lunar eclipse using my phone handheld. So if you have a tripod, use a tripod. And it's also extremely helpful if you can manually control the exposure settings on your phone. So when you zoom in, you do a digital zoom with your phone, you want to make sure that your ISO is low and your exposure setting is fast. That'll help you get crispier image of the moon. Although a blood moon is going to be a little bit harder to get, so you might need to take some practice shots. The next way to photograph the lunar eclipse is probably with one of these things. This is the Seestar S30 Pro. It's a small, smart telescope, super portable, and the best thing about this is that you can plop it down on a tripod, you can turn it on and tell it to find and image the moon for you, and it'll do it automatically. Admittedly, this is easier than using a cell phone, but the only reason I have this as a next level up is because not everyone has one of these. But if you're interested, I have a video on this and a bunch of live streams where I show objects in space using the Seestar S30 Pro, so you can take a look and see if that's something you want. Although it may be a little bit too close to the lunar eclipse to get it, but you could be ready for the next one. And last year, I used the original S30 to take photos of the lunar eclipse from March 14th, 2025, and got this incredible shot. So you can bet that this little telescope is going to go with me wherever I go, weather permitting. The next level up is to use a dedicated camera, such as a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, and you can use a telescope or a lens like this. This is a kit 75 to 300 millimeter lens. I had this out last year along with my Ascar 71F, which is a quadruplet refractor telescope, which gave me really sharp views. And I would say anything around a 400 to 500 millimeter focal length is the sweet spot for taking any images of the moon or the sun, because it fits the field of view pretty perfectly for a sensor the size of a DSLR, which is a crop sensor camera. And you do have a couple of days, and if it's clear, I would highly recommend you go outside and try and take a photo of the moon just as practice. And to give you a little cheat sheet of the exposures I used during last year's lunar eclipse, these images here, I stayed mostly around the 1/1000th of a second at ISO 400, and I kept increasing the shutter speed until about half a second when we were really close to totality. And when that sweet, sweet red hit of the blood moon eclipse, I pushed it to about 4 to 8 second exposures and got some really nice images of the moon as well as the background stars. One pro tip I can give you is pick an ISO setting and stick with it. It'll help you immensely if later on you're trying to do a collage or you're trying to do a time lapse. It'll make the noise levels as well as the overall brightness of the moon similar. And if you do want to change the brightness of the moon, if you want to make it dimmer or brighter, you change the shutter speed and not the ISO. So pick an ISO. I picked ISO 400 because I felt that that worked for me, but the lower the ISO you have, the less noise you'll have. ISO 400, I believe, is a sweet spot for my gear at least, and I can work out the noise in post-processing, as you've seen in my images and my time lapse. And unlike a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse is much longer. Even my 14 minutes of totality is long enough for me to get some test exposures. And that's what I would recommend anyone do, especially if you don't have experience taking images of an eclipse. Take some test exposures, see what the moon looks like until you settle on an exposure. You can take test exposures at different sessions, at different phases of the lunar eclipse as well. So it's not just take one test exposure in the beginning and then you're done. Now, if you're ready to go up to the final level, you have experience with eclipse photography or just photography in general, and you want to automate your images, you can do that using software. The two most popular software in the world are Eclipse Orchestrator and my personal favorite, LET-NC, which is short for Lunar Eclipse Timer and Controller. I have a full walkthrough video on how to use LET-NC with your Canon camera, so check that out when you get a chance. It tells you everything you need to know about the software. And my favorite part about the software is that it generates an exposure table for you so that you don't have to figure out how much of an exposure you need for different parts of the lunar eclipse. My 1/1000th of a second all the way to 8-second exposures were all recommended by this software, and I just stuck with it. The only caveat with using an automated software is that it's best if you use a tracking mount. Last year I had both of my camera setups, both my main camera setups on tracking mounts, as well as this Seestar. It tracks automatically so that I didn't have to worry about finding and centering the moon every single time. It stayed in the center, give or take, throughout the entire session. But that doesn't mean that if you have a manual mount that you can't use the software. You can just move your mount every once in a while to make sure that the moon stays in view. Unfortunately for me, based on my location and where I'll have to go to set up, I am probably not going to do any kind of automated imaging. But if you are in like California or Hawaii is gonna get the best view of it, or in Japan or in Eastern Australia, check out LET-NC, check out Eclipse Orchestrator and see if you can automate your images and enjoy the lunar eclipse while your gear does the work for you. Last year was my first year looking at a lunar eclipse from a dark site. Usually I'm doing it from the city, like New York City or Boston, and seeing the moon, a red moon, float in a sea of stars was mind-blowing. And I wish I had the opportunity to do that this year, but unfortunately, I'm not gonna get a chance to. So I'm really looking forward to the eclipse in June 2029 because it'll be at a much better time for me, and I know I'll be able to travel at least at a reasonable distance and experience a blood moon in darkness. If you take photos of the total lunar eclipse, weather permitting, and you'd like to share them, again, join the Discord server and share your images with the rest of the community. You can also ask for help in the Discord server, provide your own knowledge and help others. And if you'd like to support me and this channel in other means, consider checking me out on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and here on YouTube. Huge thanks to all of my supporters on this list. You can also help me out by subscribing to this channel or clicking like or share, or there's a new hype button on these videos now. That'll help me out greatly. Weather permitting, I hope you all get a really nice view of the lunar eclipse. Wishing you all clear skies and happy imaging.